Good evening, friends. I have to look at my other monitor sometimes when I'm doing these recordings, so don't worry that I wasn't looking at you. Nothing bad happened. The bats aren't attacking yet, and the bats attack usually from that side. But anyways, friends, greetings to you from Fort Kirby, Russia, and we're today going to be talking about my big trip to St. Petersburg, to a forum whose name is hard for me to say. Hold on, without looking at the screen, that would be the International Association of Teachers of Russian Language and Literature. That is 6 words in one, and that is quite the, what would that be? Acronym, abbreviation? I always forget. I also forget to turn off the sound on my phone. Stop making noise, phone. Foolish telephone. Stop it. But anyways, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk maybe a little bit about St. Petersburg in general, because I don't have a ton to say about the forum, but it was definitely interesting. It was definitely a sort of unique invitation, and I'll get into why, and a bit of a unique event for me. I'll talk about St. Petersburg, and maybe some micro news about the American Village. I need to make a full post about this. A little bit of good news, but it's the kind of good news where I kind of have to deal with it next week. So anyways, some of you are actually watching, and that's fantastic. So today's topic is, again, the main topic is going to be about the whole situation with St. Petersburg. And also remember on the site, and in fact, if some of you enjoy these live streams, you can always subscribe to the Boosty. The Boosty is Tim Kirby Russia, but it says American Villages in Russia, official Tim Kirby. That's the Boosty. If you want to subscribe and send me maybe a teeny bit of money every month, or maybe a little bit of money right now. Anyways, that's on the main chat. You can support the channel that way if you want. If you don't want, whatever. It's fine. So anyways, that's there. And remember, any comments that you leave anywhere on Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore appear in sort of one big fat feed, and I'll be able to see them and respond to them and all that other good stuff. In fact, let me get rid of all the old comments. Fantastic. So anyways, I went to St. Petersburg for that big conference there, and it was different because why? Because normally when I'm invited to conferences and stuff, excuse me, where'd that come from? Sometimes it's been, through my work, where it's been like, Tim, we need you to go somewhere. In fact, Orenburg was where I went to recently at that conference. It was a little weird because I was asked actually through Russia Today to go there, which was, I'm going to take that as a compliment, because there's some things I can't say publicly, but in the past, I've been not the first person to choose to do such things. I'll put it that way. So that was cool. That was a big honor. I'm thrilled, and I'd love to do that again. This time it was actually, I think the sort of connection is the fact that despite the fact that your buddy Tim is definitely not the most wealthy person in the world, little influential, smidge influential in Russia, but definitely not a smidge wealthy. I'm still part of that like International Russophiles Association, or at least they haven't kicked me out yet. So I think that's where the invitation ultimately came from, was through that sort of series of connections. But whatever. But they actually invited me there to cover the event, which is weird, because although I often get labeled as a journalist, and I do have a press card in Russia, I don't really super count towards that, because I'm usually more of a program host, or on this channel, a podcast host, or I do political analysis, which is different than journalism, you know what I mean? The people who are analysts generally sort of, I would say, take the information that the journalists really dig up and compile, and then they put together opinions on it. And if you haven't noticed, I'm just a smidge opinionated of a person. So yeah, so again, maybe I got mislabeled as to what my function in society is, but hey, St. Petersburg's cool. It sounded like something different, and why not? So the one thing I can say is that about it also being different. First off, we'll actually get to some of the things that were said there, because I think they are interesting. But I just want to, there's details that I forget real quickly because I have terrible memory. So I just want to say that it was also a little bit weird because, when I go to conferences, I've been to a lot of youth conferences, which was like in Orenburg recently. I've been, the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. And when it's in the sort of business political realm, I feel, like a duck sitting on a lake. You know what I mean? Like, I feel right in my element, or what's the expression? A fish in water? That would make sense. But anyways, something like that. That's kind of the way I feel about the whole thing. Now, when it comes to this event, it was weird because since it was an association of teachers, it was overwhelmingly female. So it was weird because usually I'm in these events where everyone's in a suit and everyone has way more money than I do, and it's this very, I don't know, politics and ideas and this. It's very, masculine mind oriented. And this one was different because it was sort of, by women for the most part. Although at least the initial speakers were mostly men. Still, very, very different vibe. You can already kind of feel it. And also it was more of, your academic and educational vibe. And in true American stereotype tradition, I'm always a little bit skeptical of academics. Well, maybe all of us who are Americans have now just cause for that, especially after, what was that bit of news? I think we shared it here, that it was something on like a freedom of speech scale. Harvard got like a 0. So, those scales and metrics for measuring abstract things, I don't super believe in them, but, I wouldn't put my life down, even if, I'll put it this way, even though that particular polling data or however they created this metric suits my worldview, we'll take that with a big grain of salt because you can really manipulate that kind of stuff easily. But anyways, as we all know from what we've heard and seen, higher education in the United States is deserves some skepticism from the public. I'll put it that way. So I'm always a little bit skeptical of academics, especially because they tend to exist in this very theoretical realm where that's not so much the practical realm. However, I got shut up real quick because after we sort of had like the initial introductions, which I'll talk about soon, they had a woman come on who was like a doctorate in some sort of linguistics or something, and she actually talked a lot about like the brain aspect of language and like the way the human mind works, how human communication, why it's so different from what animals have. This, that, and the other. As you can tell, again, I am not the king of memory. I'll put it this way. If it was stuff you hadn't heard before, or if you didn't happen to be a foreign person who lives in a foreign country who constantly has to argue about learning and teaching and all this other stuff related to foreign languages, if you didn't have that experience like I do, am having, then you would probably find that very interesting. But unfortunately, because I have to constantly argue with Russian people about all the stuff all the time, unfortunately, not too much of it was new to me. But that's okay. That's okay. The nice part was she sort of started out with this breakdown of like the physics of language, which I think was a nice thing to do and was maybe, for some people, enlightening. Now, the real sort of beginning speeches were from like, so one of Tolstoy's, not his ancestors, his progeny would be, yeah, I guess that's the way to look at it. So this guy, Vladimir Ilyich Tolstoy, his ancestor is the Tolstoy. So anyways, he kind of had one kind of interesting quote, was that the Russian language cannot be canceled. He sort of got into this, well, first off, that's a nice motto. That was and he came out first, so I think he did a good job like I did. I tend to, when I do public speaking, I don't perfectly work out what I'm going to say at all, but I usually come up with like one or two spicy talking points that I really want to drive home, and I kind of keep them in the back of my mind, and that was a good one. The Russian language cannot be canceled. That's a great way to start a forum. Mr. Tolstoy, your lineage was felt in those words. So anyways, he also mentioned that like science and literature are at the core of the Russian language. That's something we could debate in the comments. He sort of was like, well, where are really the great works of stuff written about in Russian? It's the golden age of Russian literature, and throughout the Soviet period as well, there was a lot of stuff that people really like on an international level. Ironically, after communism ended, the international popularity of Russian literature ended. Interesting. Interesting. That's something. If you want to tell me in the comments why you think that's the case, let me know. But I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Is there some sort of literary work from modern day Russia, post communist Russia, that does have like mass international success? Because I'm thinking no. Maybe the Metro 2033 book series would be the exception of that. That was pretty popular, but it's not like, A Dog's Heart, Master and Margarita, Pushkin, All Quiet, Quiet Flows the Dawn, and although it's not on that level, but it was international. So maybe there is one. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think? Is Metro 2033 reasonable? But people also say Metro 2033 is also filled with Russian liberal propaganda, so who knows? Played the game, didn't read the book. Not surprising. That should surprise no one here. Anyways, let's see. After that, this Mr. Tolstoy, the host lady whose name she did not display. This is one thing I'm going to have a harsh criticism of, is they had behind the two speakers, they had this lovely, like the two hosts. So they had hosts, one male host and one female host. Classic Russia, Soviet Union, always the one male, one female host on like every TV show, every event in the Soviet Union, always sort of like almost like a fake married couple. Very, very Russian. So super Russian way of doing things. Russian know-how. So yeah. But behind them, they had this like giant, what is that? The Titantron in pro wrestling, or like the super screen or whatever. We'll use the improper term that everyone will understand. Giant television, essentially. And they could have displayed anything, but like a lot of people, they didn't really display their names or anything, and that would have been really nice. So the woman who was the host, I didn't even see or hear what her name is. So she's host lady. So the host lady said that the Russian language is the means of international communication. And this is one thing where I kind of brought this up, and I wrote a post about it here on Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore. But it bears repeating that, like, one of the justifications that I've been here the entire time, since I've lived in Russia, I had one question. Why are we obliged to teach every child in the country the English language? Why is that an obligation of the Russian state? And one of the key argument is this sort of blind, robotic repetition of English is the international language. And they all say that expression. English is the international language. It's the international language over and over and over again, and no one wanted to think about it or consider it or question it. It was just interesting. Someone on their account has just the question why rather than listening written. That's interesting. But anyways, I questioned for a long time, especially when I first got here. Why? Well, I know why. Why do Russians learn English in school? Because they lost the Cold War. And then when you say that to a Russian person, unfortunately, here come for them. Well, maybe for half the people. It depends on their attitude towards the Soviet Union, but you usually get a lot of copium of, well, we didn't lose the Cold War. That's like when people in America say, we didn't lose Vietnam. No. We have to accept our defeats. America lost in Vietnam, unfortunately, at great cost and to everyone involved. And Russia lost the Cold War. So I do not tolerate that. That is, although I love this country, and you may define my views as being very pro-Russian, I'm not pro-Russian enough to shove the truth in the toilet. So anyways, I've had a million of those kind of conversations. But anyways, so for me, when at this, the big conference about the Russian language, the big one, the biggest one on the planet, the sort of epicenter of all that, when the host lady, again, I don't know her name, said that the Russian language is the means of international communication, that's a big statement. It's also the exact opposite of what I was always told about this. Well, I don't know. English is the language of international communication. We all have to learn it. So I think that that's a major step away from Russia being, acting colonized. I'll put it that way. And I think, although I'm not quite sure if she meant it this way, but I can kind of infer with my magical inference skills that she sort of meant that Russia's really been the key player in the formation of like the BRICS and uniting the global South and what's probably going to be an ever-continuing and ever-growing series of uprisings in Africa, so on and so forth. So I think in some ways what she kind of was hinting, maybe I'm reading into this too much, that sort of, Russia's is the voice of the resistance of the multipolar world versus the global hegemon's single way of doing everything. Wow. I could be reading too much into it, but to be honest, my interpretation of what she said sounds better. So we're going to go with that, aren't we? Someone did read a written statement that I believe came from Putin, from Sergei Lavrov, and from the... it's weird. I always thought St. Petersburg had a mayor, but I believe they said governor of St. Petersburg, so I don't quite understand that. Yeah. So anyways, those statements were short and very official and very officially slightly positive, so I don't think that there's too much that was really to even be said about them. In fact, I had lunch that day. As you guys know, despite the fact that I don't mind talking to all of you, I am not at all an extrovert. I am the lord of introverts. And so I kind of don't really go around seeking to start conversations very often, if ever, no matter how bored I am. And there was just the lunch was served, and the lunch was kind of a problem because they only sort of allotted like 45 minutes for it, and there were like 600 people. So anyways, I think they actually pushed everything back after that because you can't, despite the fact that they had a very large hall that had 4 lines to get food, still if you divide 600 by 4, you get 125 people to go through like a single line to get food. You're not going to do that in 45 minutes. So anyways, with that situation, there were not that many places to sort of eat. So I kind of went over to one table, and I noticed that everyone was speaking Spanish. So I kind of got to talk to one guy from Venezuela, one guy from Argentina, and the other guy was from, I don't remember, it was somewhere else also. Let's just say like Paraguay or something. But anyways, it was kind of interesting to talk to them about what's going on in South America. But the one guy made an interesting statement. He said that always sort of, this like official statement from the president always has this sort of a character of being a, what term did he use? It was, it was very protocol style speech where say something nice, people applaud, say something nice, people applaud. So we love you, Putin, but, and Lavrov. And to be honest, we love everybody who gave those little sort of written speeches delivered by someone else, but they were just sort of short and full of platitudes and niceties. Is nicety a word? And that's about it. So we'll move on. While I was there, people also tended to use a term I've never heard before in Russian, which was "rusist," as in if you say like you have America, Amerikanets, and American, but Americanist, I believe, is someone who is like an authority on America, like someone who studies the United States. So I've never heard someone refer to themselves as a Russist. I've only heard it like in terms of like other countries. So that was different. Yeah, but there were a lot of foreign teachers from other countries, so that was also important. My buddy Primakov from Rosatorichstva also gave a speech. What did he say? He said that the Russian language is wonderful because at its foundation, it's I didn't write this down very well, but basically he said something interesting that we need to that he mentioned, because he also noticed that the audience was almost all women, that there must be something, or I should say, there must be something lovely about the Russian language because it's carried to us by the lovely gender. Now in Russian, men are the strong gender and women are the lovely gender. That's a good expression to learn. So you have Silny pol and prekrasny pol. So silny is strong, and prekrasny is like wonderful or lovely. Usually, I think it lines up with the word wonderful more so, but in this context, I think lovely comes across much better. Also, if you just answer a question like lovely, let's do it, it works more that way. But anyways, sometimes it's wonderful. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing he meant to say. And that's also one thing that also doesn't have an effect if you're learning a foreign language, that generally, because languages are almost always taught by women, they do become feminized. Like the way you learn them and the way that men and women speak is different. So you're always going to get a more feminized version of Russian through the overwhelming supermajority of Russian teachers, because they're all ladies. I believe this is also from Primakov, who said that Russian... Oh, he was more blunt, apparently. He just said Russian is the language of decolonization. Now, that's awesome. That's nice and blunt. I like the bluntness. And it was sort of inferred that inferred, but I don't think super outright stated, that we need to decolonize from the influence of having English all over Russia, something I've been telling people in Russia publicly and in the media for over 12 years. I see there's at least one person listening right now, Yekaterina, I'm looking at you, who's known me for that long, and she can tell you that it is the truth, and I have been saying stuff like that in the media way before it was cool, or way before the Overton window moved far enough over to say it publicly. Let's see. Русский язык носитель всех религий России и Союза мужчин и женщин. This is also from Primakov, and see, this is why Primakov. This is the, you know, of the people. You know, people might say like, Tim, would you like to have dinner with Putin? No. You have dinner with Primakov, of like famous influential Russian people, because he said the Russian language is the this sounds bad. It's carrier. Carrier sounds like a disease. The bearer. That's it. The Russian language is the bearer of all the religions of Russia and the union of a man and a woman. Ooh. Ooh. That's also super. See, this is one of the problems. Maybe I'm not a good podcast host. I think this is the real meat and juice of this podcast, but I don't think anyone's listening to this point. I think some of the more casual people who watch my podcast are like, Tim, you need to get to the juice faster. But that's all. That's interesting. The Russian language is the bearer of the religions of Russia and the union of a man and a woman. That's it. That's one thing, you know. And if you go to a protest that's for family values in America, just have a sign that says that the Russian language is the bearer of the religions and especially the union of a man and a woman. Just carry that sign. Quote from Yevgeny Primakov. The Russian language is the first... that was one thing that came up. They had a direct like feed from space, and which was, of course, cool. And it seemed to be live, so it wasn't recorded. I don't think it was recorded. I think they actually timed it out, which is super sweet. But then again, guys, the old man is sometimes a little deaf, and maybe I missed that, but it seemed to be live. The most important thing is how it seems. And they said basically that the Russian language is the first language in space. The first human words uttered in the vacuum of space, where they probably couldn't, technically be heard. But then again, inside the capsule where Gagarin was, he could hear himself. But yeah, were uttered in Russian, and that Russian to this day is, in space, is kind of the dominant language in space. So, because the only space station was made by the Russians, and now, really, with the United States having the inability to send men up and down without Russian help, let's see. Another thing that came up, this is after Primakov, was that the Russian government is officially getting rid of Anglicisms in like official material. So like in your State Duma, in your laws, in your school textbooks, all of the ever annoying and generally lame Anglicisms that if you're a native speaker of English, well, for Russians, I don't know what it sounds like to them, but for a native English speaker of English, sometimes they're convenient, but sometimes they're not, because they're wrong. From an English perspective, they're sort of like remix of the word. Yeah, and so it's not exactly complimentary very often, and yeah. And one thing that I did mention under the post, which bears repeating, is when I was thinking about it, I think I put this in the post on the channel, maybe I didn't, but I won't repeat the words because I know, although, well, I should say I'm religious too, I'm just more streetwise, baby. I won't repeat the words, but a lot of words related to sexual perversion in Russia are English. So if you were to look at an adult website and think of all the different genres that you could imagine, in Russian they just sort of write those exact same genres transliterated letter for letter. And I think that sort of says something about the influence of the English language on the Russian language, maybe. Some examples that they mentioned were leasing, which they call leasing, which actually kind of sounds like licking, because lizat is to lick. Apparently, ecolog or ecologist is actually not a native concept for Russia. That only came from English. But ecology, I was pretty sure was Greek, so I don't understand that one, but I'll accept it. Well, here's one that's really annoying. Of the annoying ones is bullying. So there's a lot of words you could use for bullying. I would say maybe izdevательство, which is some sort of form of like harassment or, I don't know, bullying or kind of verbally torturing someone. There's another word in English that's all better suits it, but I can't remember. But anyways, the reason I don't like the word when they use bullying in Russian is because they call it bullying. They don't say bullying with three, what are those called? It's in Russian, it's slog. Syllables. With three, they don't say it with 3 syllables, they say it with 2. So it's like not even close to right. It drives me nuts. And so that's one where I cannot wait till that is officially deleted from all government records. Goodbye. So yeah, so essentially another word they mentioned was ruralization, which I don't even know how you would say in Russian. That's like Japanese. Ruralizatsiya. Ruralizatsiya, I guess. I don't know. I've never seen that one, but they said that was one of the words. But anyways, that is a weird thing to say. So they said basically words that have a Russian equivalent and are sort of being erased. The Russian equivalent wins on all government documents and textbooks and all that. Of course, words that don't have a Russian equivalent, like I would say, the number one that always comes to my mind is something like Sudoku, right? Because it's a game. Or golf is just called golf. In Russian, that doesn't need to be changed. We don't need to have a bunch of intellectuals sit down and be like, okay, golf is foreign word. What we call it? We call it outdoor hit ball with stick game. Yes. You know, I don't think we need to do all that, but I think it's interesting. I don't know. You guys let me know. Does the Russian language need to be purified by force, or is that lame? I know France has tried to do stuff like that, and I believe that's also caused some rifts in Spanish, because in some places I believe they call it like computador for like computer, but then in other places they use a more Spanish sounding thing. That could also be a little bit trouble, because the word computer is obviously really popular in Russia. You know, computers are a big part of our lives, and the more like the word computer has sort of won the day. But they used to be called EVM, which stands for something EVM расшифровка. There we go. Электронно-вычислительная машина. Electric calculating machine. You know, something that computes. But it does have the nice abbreviation of EVM. So, yeah. So, I don't know, because computer is technically one of those words where, you know, there is a Russian term for it. So, will computer also get the axe? That's going to mean a lot of government, like a lot of government documents are going to have to be changed because, you know, computers have been a big part of our lives for a long, long time. So, yeah. So, interesting. I don't know if that's going to happen. Let's see. Let's see. What else do we have to say about this conference? They wanted to be clear that the state is not going to force people to speak a certain way, but the state is going to set an example for people. So they wanted to be that very clear that obviously because there's been dark days in every society, that they're not going to come and beat you over the head for saying ruralization. No one's going to come and crack your head over that, but the government is going to set an example for the population. And to be honest, again, guys, this is one of these things where this may sound stupid to you. This may sound something small. And in fact, I'm probably the number one critic of pedantic people who love to focus on minutia. But wait, just hold on. They're trying to set an example. They're actually showing a model of behavior. And this is something that Russia needs to do and virtually never does. So for me, this is a major victory that someone in the Russian government's like, look, we want people to do something. We are going to project a model of behavior so that way people reflect the model of behavior they see. This fills me with a hope for the future of Russia that you cannot comprehend. Because generally, at every conference I go to speak, and again, at this one I didn't speak. It was bizarre. I wasn't speaking. That I go to speak, I mention about we need to in the media have positive models of behavior. Everyone nods their heads. They go, oh yeah. And then they forget, like fish in a fishbowl. So this was nice to hear coming from someone who isn't me and someone who won't forget. So, and also one of the things about the conference was the big question. One of the big questions of the conference was how to not lose our understanding of reality in a changing world. So again, this kind of goes back to the whole Putin thing, where he's like, the West is the empire of lies. Well, of course, he doesn't talk like Alex Jones, but he'd be so much more interesting if he did. We're going to project the spirit of Alex Jones on the Putin, but he basically did say that the West is the empire of lies. So I think that's something very interesting, that it's like, how do we linguistically grab a hold, continue to have a hold on reality? Because again, this goes back to language is an important part of propaganda. If you haven't noticed, it's a key component of propaganda. And a lot of the political correctness, which sort of evolved into what today we call wokeness, which is also political correctness, a form of it. That's very much based on linguistics. And although, because it was a conference that was 85% female, someone didn't come up and was like, we've got to, get ready to intellectually defend the motherland raw. You didn't really hear any of that. And there was a little bit of implications of things like that, which was very, very good. Yes. Let's see. Anything else? A Chinese representative came and she said there are 1,700 Russian teachers in China, as in teachers of the Russian language, not necessarily Russians themselves. I assume she meant Chinese people who were taught to be teachers of Russian. She mentioned that one thing about the Chinese education of the Russian language includes a total study of every aspect of Russia, from like economics to literary history to the geography. She said that the only approach to the Russian language has to be a comprehensive approach. You can't just learn the language in a vacuum, which I agree with. Trying to learn a language in a vacuum with like a bunch of sticky post-it notes on every item in your house without any context or meaning, that's a no-go. That is a no-go. Oh, that's no work. She also sort of mentioned a little bit of a timeline of the history of Chinese people really being interested in learning Russian, which all started with the Communist Revolution in 1949, excuse me. It's even written in front of me, and I still said 45. 1949 to 1959, when the spat with Khrushchev began. She said that during that period, people wanted to bring the experiences of the Soviet Union back to China. They kind of wanted to go there, see what was happening, see what worked, see what didn't, and bring that info back to China. That was a big thing. Also, the Soviet Union was very super duper into the idea of having young people from all over the world study at their universities, obviously to propagandize them to an extent, But, the Chinese were also part of that because remember, one of the problems of why the Soviet Union and China had that spat during Khrushchev was because Khrushchev tried to talk to the Chinese like they were little brother. That we're the big Soviet Union, we're the true, bastion of communism, and you guys are kind of, maybe not second-class communists, but maybe not true first-class communists. And, of course, that arrogance and smugness, the kind of smugness we get out of U.S. foreign policy a lot nowadays, definitely caused a lot of problems for Russia and China. However, when we warp forward to 1978 and to present, that attitude towards China does not exist anywhere. I've never heard anyone look down on the Chinese. I'll put it that way. That I've ever met in Russia is being some sort of second-rate or second-class group of people. So, you know what? To be honest, I think Khrushchev alone, or maybe a very small fraction of people within the Communist Party thought that, but the entire relationship between the Soviet Union and China had to suffer because of his corn-loving, I guess we could say racism. I don't know. But anyways, from 1978 to present, so I believe 78 was it the tail end or of Brezhnev? Oh boy, I gotta look. Let's see. List of leaders of Soviet Union. Because then you get into, what's his face? Antonov, who was there for a little bit. Brezhnev till 1982. No, Andropov, not Antonov, Andropov. Who was, to 82, and Andropov was there for 2 years till he died. And then Chernenko, who I believe also died. And then, God gave us Gorbachev. So anyways, that's the sort of latter half of the Brezhnev period was, I guess, enough time to kind of heal things with China. And then again, they said that the present focus was really on building partnership with Russia, that the reason that the Chinese educational system in a lot of places includes the Russian language is for partnership building. That's at least their official explanation. If you are free to disagree with it, if you are distrustful. So anyways, I think, did I have something else written here? Oh, there was something I wanted to mention on the live stream, but that might have to be a separate live stream. Oh my gosh, that's real big. We might have to break this into 2 live streams. But anyways, I'm going to look at the chat and see if there are any questions about this. And if there are no questions, oh my gosh, we've been going for 40 minutes. I did have a lot to say about this. So anyways, we're going to break this live stream into 2. Vladimir Zhirinovsky about the Russian language. English subtitles. Sorry, Jim, I cannot watch this while I'm sort of doing this live stream because the system might get confused, and I didn't really set it up to do that. So sorry about that. We'll have to look at that another time. Wow, no comments. No one has. Wait, what's that? That's a blue star. Okay, so anyways, this live stream is going to end, and a new live stream is going to start like super amazing soon, as in right now.